Welcome, friends, to 5 Minutes with Kerusso. I'm Whitney, and today I want to get a little further in what I started last week, talking about what does the Bible have to say about self-care, because that's a really popular concept these days, and the Bible has a lot to say about it. I was kind of surprised by how much I found, and I'm really excited to share as much as I can about it with you. So first, I want to start off in 1 Kings 19. Now, this is a chapter of Elijah's story. And at this point in his story, he's just been threatened by Jezebel to take his life. So he goes on the run and he heads for the desert and he leaves his servant behind before trying to cross the desert. So all alone, running for his life, with no food and water, he spends a whole day in the desert, and by the end of it is ready to die and is praying to God to take his life. And then the next morning, after he falls asleep, he awakens to an angel there with food and water for him, who encourages him to refresh himself and press on with his journey. And after he gets some food and water, he's able to continue through the desert and continue with his work. And I have to admit, I find this verse a little amusing personally because, man, if it's not so relatable. Like, obviously not the death threats in the desert part, but man, if I don't get cranky when I'm hungry. And that's just so human. I do love a story that humanizes a huge biblical character, because so often we can fall into just seeing them as like mythical prophets of the Bible. But no, they were people. This guy got cranky when he was hungry, just like I do. Oh, and it is so hard. It is so hard when we're in such a stressful situation. It's hard sometimes to even remember to take care of your body with its own basic needs. It's hard sometimes just to remember to feed yourself. And I love that the Bible puts this message in here just to remind you that, okay, if you are in a truly desperate situation, sometimes just giving yourself that nourishment and the fuel that you need can be just enough of a boost that you need to see a bad situation in a better light. And it may make all the difference. And that's just such an important thing about self-care, even just making sure that you get your basic needs met. I love that that's in the Bible. And it did amuse me. Okay. My next verse is not quite as lighthearted. My next verse comes from Ecclesiastes, which is a very unique book because on surface level, it seems very much like a downer. All throughout the book, a very prevalent theme is the author talking about how life is meaningless. Even from the get-go, he says, meaningless, meaningless, life is meaningless. I want to point out first that the translation of the word meaningless would actually fit better with the word fleeting or like vapor. So when he says life is meaningless, it's more saying that life is impermanent. It's here one day and it's gone the next. And a lot of times we don't ascribe a lot of value to something that is impermanent. Like jewelry costs more than flowers because flowers die. Jewelry will last forever. But as we've figured out, and as the Bible tells us, just because something is fleeting, just because something doesn't last, doesn't mean that it doesn't have a higher value ascribed to it. And I really want to dig into Ecclesiastes a lot more in another video. But for now, I want to pull from Ecclesiastes 5, verses 18 through 20. And I'm just going to read part of it. Then I realized that it is good and proper for a man to eat and drink and to find satisfaction in his toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given him, for this is his lot. Moreover, when God gives any man wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, to accept his lot and be happy in his work, this is a gift of God. I love this verse because it does still have that underlying kind of doom and gloom tone of life is short and it is impermanent and we are only here for such a small time on this earth. But it still offers us a kind of freedom in that fleeting nature of life. Because it's not until we remember that life is short that we think, when was the last time I took time off from work to spend with people that I love? When was the last time I carved out some time in my day to do something that I enjoy? And I love that the Bible is giving this message of telling us that's important. It's important to do things that you enjoy just for the sake of enjoying them, even if it's material. It is good to enjoy yourself in this life because it is so short. And I love that message is there. Okay, so real quick before I cut out, I know you've seen a lot of me this month. We do have some amazing guest speakers lined up. Hopefully, you should be seeing them very soon. But thank you so much for sticking with me, and hopefully I will see you next week.